All right, making my way through the Oscar nominated films, let's talk past lives. I'm Shannan E. Johnson with The Professional Pen, where we develop screenwriters from idea to pitch. Need help on your screenplay? Go to www.theprofessionalpen.com. Past Lives is another simple movie that I really enjoyed. This is a new time filmmaker, writer, director, independent filmmakers. This is your time to shine. She made this film on her own and then was able to get an Oscar nomination. What are you doing with your film? Speaking of this being an independent film, it is not structured in a traditional way. So we start off with our goal, which is them wanting to reconnect with each other. But we feel like that wanes for her, especially once she marries. It doesn't seem like she's longing for him in the same way that he's longing for her. So our goals kind of get a little murky there. But because this is an independent writer director's film, you can tell that it's more of the director's story, right? The way that it's shot, etc., is the thing that really pushes the story along. I want you to think about that because I've never seen the script. I don't know what the script looks like, but the script might not be as good of a read as it is to watch. It may not have made it through the reader circuit to get through Hollywood because the read might not have jumped off the page. The read might have felt slow and the pace might have been really hard to get through, or we really might have tried to be figuring out like, well, what's going on here? Because she's the person we're following, but she doesn't seem to be looking for him. He's looking for her, right? So I want you to think about that when you're writing your screenplays, because not every single screenplay is meant for everything. Not every screenplay is meant to be a writing sample. Not every screenplay is meant to be in a competition. Not every screenplay is meant to try to staff on. Not every screenplay is meant to go the studio route. Some things are made to go independently, and it's your job to figure out which space is best for your script. So I love the way that this was shot. I loved all of the wide angles. I loved all of the depth that was utilized in a lot of the shots. I also really enjoyed how it made us feel a part of the world. Like a lot of the times when we watch films, it's almost as if we are literally watching them on screen. But the way that the camera would kind of glide into some of their conversations or not have them fully in the frame made me feel like they were regular people walking through life. It made the world a part of the film as well, not just them. And it made me feel like they were just regular people, and I was kind of eavesdropping on their conversation. When the film opens, it opens with us eavesdropping. We literally hear some other people trying to figure out who these characters are, and then we're taken back so that we can get that information. So speaking of the world, a lot of those long shots and quiet moments really submerged the characters in the world and really showed the space between them, right? He represents her childhood and Korea, where she leaves when she's 12. And she kind of represents this ambition, right? Something that he isn't, but is very attracted to. One of my favorite parts about this film is when he says that he loves her because she is her, but that's also the reason he could never be with her, right? It's her ambition. She needed to leave. She had to get out. And so I feel like these wide shots and this space and this bringing in the entire world to what they have going on really uses space to show that they are separate. You right? Like they are never going to be this. This is not the kind of love story where we go, oh my gosh, they're going to be together. No, they're not, because in reality, it usually doesn't work out that way. As a writer, I really like to write in silence, as in I like for time and space to pass so that you can understand what people are feeling. There were a lot of quiet moments in this film, a lot of moments that showed us that they were thinking, a lot of moments that showed us that time was passing. Obviously, they did some title cards here and there to let us know how many years were passing. But even in between that, there would be a lot of silent moments so that you can just sit with the fact that they haven't seen each other in 20-something years. So speaking of how it was shot, it felt like a series of vignettes, right? Like short spurts of moments, like one lasting montage. There were only a few scenes that we really sat in for a while. One of the longest scenes was when they went to go see the Statue of Liberty. So they had a conversation. The camera was very, very wide. Like we were nowhere near them. And they were having a conversation while they were in line to get on the ferry. Another was when they were in bed, when she was in bed with her husband and they were discussing her childhood friend. The lighting is very dark. We can barely see them. We can just hear them. And it's such a vulnerable moment. Like they're talking about their fears and their insecurities. And thematically, the husband doesn't feel close to the wife because she dreams in Korean, because he doesn't know Korean fluently. But really, the problem is the childhood friend, right? Like that's the subtext. The subtext is that the cultural barrier is rearing its head, but the childhood friend is the cultural barrier. That's the reason he's suddenly insecure, right? That's the reason that he needs to have this conversation, but it's a very, very, very vulnerable one without it being sappy. The other really long scene was the one that we kind of bookend. We open up with them in the bar, and then we finally make it back to them being in the bar. And I really like this scene because, again, the way that it's shot, most of the time we don't see the husband. So we have to even remember that he's there. How uncomfortable were you during this conversation, right? They're both speaking in Korean. The husband doesn't know it very well. So she's trying to translate between her childhood friend / person who's very in love with her and her husband. And I had to keep reminding myself that he was there. And every time I did, I got a little uncomfortable. But at the same time, even though her husband was honest about his insecurities, he was also very emotionally mature. Like most of us wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have been able to do it. I think I'm that emotionally mature. But most people would not have been able to do that. Most people would have, projected onto her what they thought was happening between the two people. But in my opinion, other than when she finally found him 12 years later, there was no real interest in him, right? But he had a lot of interest in her. So during that time, we only really get to see the husband's face every now and again, but it's like, what is he thinking? How is he sitting here as they're having this long conversation? And the childhood friend is bringing up stuff about love and all these other things. Child, it's a good scene. One of the other things I really liked about this film is I like to learn about other cultures without it being thrown in your face, right? Because of the things our characters have to go through, the things that they're doing in their everyday life, etc., we learn about some of the customs and cultures. We learn about the differences in some of the American ideals versus the Korean ideals. We learn about the military, marriage, masculinity, all of that, because these characters are talking about things that they're actually going through versus it being like, hey, learn this cultural thing. Hey, learn that cultural thing, right? We learn it as we go. It becomes organic information. Last thing, and I'm going to let you go. My favorite scene was the last one. Now, I don't know why they had to walk down the street to get the Uber. Can't the Uber come to the door? So I don't know why they had to walk down the street to go to the Uber. But I appreciate it. Again, this is emotional maturity that most people on the planet cannot reach. I appreciated that they understood that there is love there, but it's not romantic. And it's probably, again, from their cultural background of understanding that there are many lives, hence the title, Past Lives. And maybe they were lovers at some other time. Maybe they will be lovers in the future. But this life, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. And that was just so great for me. Now, with that being said, they could have ended on the door for me. I didn't need to see the childhood friend in the taxi, the Uber, or whatever he was in, driving across the bridge. I didn't need to see that. To me, that felt like, all right, director, you just wanted to show us the city of New York again. I didn't need to see it. They could have left me on the door frame. And I think it just would have been perfect. So what are your thoughts? How did you enjoy it? Let me know. And until then, happy writing.
The professional pen.